Otto Rahn is one of the 20th century's most fascinating yet least understood figures. His relentless pursuit of the Holy Grail, the cup said to have held the wine shared by Jesus and his disciples at the Last Supper, has earned him the moniker of the real-life Indiana Jones. Rahn's true narrative surpasses any real fantasy, however. Convinced that research of ancient texts had provided him with enough sufficient clues, Otto Rahn traversed the forests of Mugenbrunn and the grottoes and caves of the Languedoc on a quest for the most sacred relic in all of Christendom. If you believe the rumors, not only did Rahn locate the Grail, he handed it over to his sinister benefactor and boss, Reichsführer-SS, Heinrich Himmler. Between the war years, Berlin was a city known throughout Europe for its bohemian subculture. It became a haven for liberal discourse between young intellectuals bent on fracturing the old ideological certainties which had glued together the 19th century. Amongst this group, none were more colorful than a dark-haired, green-eyed young man named Otto Wilhelm Rahn. His slender figure, cloaked in characteristic black coat and fedora, cast a long shadow out of those interwar years, a silhouette concealing stories and myths that remain the subject of fascination and conjecture over 80 years after his demise. Rahn was said to be a Mason, a Rosicrucian, a Luciferian, an agent of the Thule Gesellschaft, an initiated Cathar, and even the leader of an obscure international secret society. The French locals where Rahn conducted his Grail search called him a seducer doubled with believer, an eternal adolescent with a superhuman passion for the Grail and the Hermetic tradition. Rahn, according to his friend Fauré-Lacaussade, had a great but disorderly intelligence, and was sometimes too much of a dreamer to make a good student, but would pursue obsessively any subject that excited his imagination, and no subject excited Rahn's imagination more than the whereabouts of the Holy Grail. To this day, it's widely believed that this enigmatic young man discovered the hiding place of one of the most sacred relics in all Christendom. According to the SS dossier penned by Rahn himself, he entered the world on February 18, 1904, in Michelstadt, a quaint town near Frankfurt within the Odenwald, a picturesque low mountain range spanning the German states of Hesse, Bavaria, and Baden-Württemberg. It's within the Odenwald that Wagner's legendary hero, Siegfried, renowned for slaying dragons in the Nibelung saga, meets his demise. Siegfried's Christianized name is Michel, hence the namesake of Otto's hometown, Michelstadt, the town of Michel the Dragon Slayer. Michelstadt lies a mere 20 kilometers west of Amorbach, the site of the Grail Castle in the Odenwald, where Wolfram von Eschenbach purportedly penned segments of his 13th century epic poem, Parsifal, chronicling the Arthurian hero's quest for the Holy Grail. Reflecting on his origins, Otto Rahn once remarked, "I am therefore come from a world in the orbit of the Grail. Parsifal, Siegfried, and Odin Wotan were my godfathers." Accounts vary regarding who introduced Otto Rahn to the captivating legends of the Holy Grail during his formative years. Some attribute this influence to his father, Karl, while others suggest it was his mother, Clara. Regardless, Otto was immersed in the rich tapestry of German folklore from a young age, encountering tales of Parzival, Lohengrin, and the Nibelungenlied. These grand narratives ignited his imagination, laying the groundwork for his future writings. It's conceivable that Otto sought solace in these mythical tales to cope with a tumultuous childhood marked by the abandonment of his maternal mother and the untimely passing of his older brother, Rudolf. Compounding his hardships, his father's career as a magistrate necessitated frequent relocations, hindering Otto's ability to forge lasting friendships, seeing him grow into a solitary and introverted boy. As he matured, Otto gravitated toward the works of German Romantic luminaries like Johann Wolfgang von Goethe and Friedrich Nietzsche, exploring themes of transcendence, the supernatural, and the pursuit of enlightenment. He delved into Greek, Roman, and Nordic mythology, finding inspiration in the folklore collected by Jacob and Wilhelm Grimm, whom he revered as paragons of philology and folklore studies. These literary influences shaped Otto's aspirations as he envisioned a future career in philology. Otto's early life experiences blended to form a vivid mental picture with an abundance of imagery completely undimmed by the passage of time. He even believed his own ancestors had faced persecution and met their demise at the hands of inquisitors. Otto's thirst for adventure had been sparked at a young age. Together with his friend Hermann Kirschmeyer, who shared his fascination with Parzival and the Grail, Otto embarked on climbing expeditions and explored caves, a passion that would never diminish for him. Later, while studying at the University of Gießen, Otto was encouraged by his professor, Freiherr von Gaal, to focus his efforts on the history of the Cathars, a 12th century religious sect from southern France. The Cathars challenged the authority of the Catholic Church, asserting that the creator of the Old Testament was the architect of evil, and they alone were the one true Christian faith. Professor von Gaal urged Otto to investigate the Albigensian Crusade and the tragic massacre at Montségur in southern France in 1244. An event which marked the demise of the Cathars and the Gnostic tradition in southern Europe. Rahn is quoted as saying, "My ancestors are witches, and I am a heretic." It was a subject that completely captivated me. Otto Rahn found inspiration in the groundbreaking work of archaeologist Heinrich Schliemann, who famously believed Homer's Iliad reflected real historical events, a belief which led to his sensational discovery of the ruins of Troy. Otto dreamed of achieving similar results by proving there was a factual basis to Wolfram von Eschenbach's epic narrative poem, Parzival, a 13th century recreation of the story of the Holy Grail. Rahn firmly believed that the Cathars safeguarded a sacred relic imbued with extraordinary magical virtue. According to Wolfram's account, whoever possessed or encountered the Grail would receive healing and eternal life. Convinced that the Grail's secret had been lost with the demise of the Cathars during the Albigensian Crusade, Rahn endeavored to establish a direct connection between Montsalvache, the mythical Grail castle in Parzival, and the actual Cathar stronghold of Montségur. In August 1930, feeling restless in Berlin, Otto Rahn packed his bags for Neon, Switzerland, with plans to eventually settle in Paris, an enticing prospect for the young adventurer. Far from the legendary Grail hunter we know him as today, Otto had been working as a screenwriter on a project, a collaboration between German and French film companies. He had gained the opportunity through his already extensive contacts in Paris and had even hoped to have an acting part in the film. To survive financially, Otto took on roles as a language instructor and translator at a Catholic school. Reflecting on his experiences, he confided in a friend about the hardships he endured during his time in Geneva, recalling a period of scant nourishment and substandard living conditions, his rented room having had no electrical power and no running water. In these challenging conditions, Otto tirelessly hammered out articles and meticulously typed copies, distributing them to over 50 newspapers and journals. Despite his efforts, only one publication showed any interest in his work, prompting him to return to Berlin before his departure for Paris to meet with this agency, the outcome of which remains unknown. During this return trip to Berlin, Otto reunited with his friend Fauré-Lacaussade, who was taken aback by Otto's visibly frail appearance. His complexion was so pallid that his cheeks seemed almost translucent. Like many of his fellow Germans, Otto struggled to endure the devastating effects of the recession and economic collapse gripping the nation. Yet, speculation has arisen that more sinister forces might have contributed to Rahn's condition. Could it be that before Otto embarked on his quest for the Grail, he'd already been marked out as a person of interest for Himmler and the Nazis? His intellectual prowess and his doctoral studies focused on subjects such as Goethe and Nietzsche under the tutelage of Dr. Friedrich Gundolf at Heidelberg could have potentially flagged him as a person of interest. Though entirely speculation, it is indeed possible Otto had already been coerced by a powerful figure such as Himmler to play a role in advancing his esoteric agenda. Regardless, Otto set his sights on the Grail and bid farewell to Geneva, Switzerland in 1931, potentially spending time in Paris before heading south to the French Pyrenees. Around this time, Otto became associated with Maurice Maigret and the Polaire, the quasi-Masonic secret society to which he belonged. Maigret, a poet and esteemed historian of the Pyrenees, had already authored several works delving into the crusade against the Cathars. He believed the Cathars were the Buddhists of the Occident and theorized that Hindu doctrines had been brought to meridional France by a Tibetan sage. While delving into Catharism at the Bibliothèque Nationale in Paris, it was Maurice Maigret who encouraged Otto to take his research beyond the confines of the library. It was during these discussions that Maigret shared his belief with Rahn regarding the enigmatic figure Nicetas. According to Maigret, Nicetas, purportedly the Bogomil bishop of Constantinople, who presided over the Cathar Council of Saint-Félix-Lauragais in 1167, left behind written teachings before vanishing into the Orient. Maigret believed that this manuscript would likely have been stored with the Cathar treasure in the chateau of Montségur, now possibly housed in the grotto of Ornolac, a commune in the Ariège department of southwestern France. Inspired by these concepts, Otto prepared himself for a first-hand exploration of the Montségur region. Before embarking on this journey, Maigret introduced him to his circle of esoteric-minded friends. Among them were the mysterious elderly Countess Myriane de Pujal-Murat and Arthur Cousseau, whom Otto held in high regard. Arthur Cousseau recounted the legend of Escalermonde de Foix to Otto. According to the legend, on the night of Montségur's downfall, Escalermonde received custody of the Grail previously protected by the Cathars. With the handover complete, she transformed into a dove and flew eastward. The Countess became a close platonic friend and a benefactor to Otto. Believing herself to be the direct descendant, if not the living reincarnation, of Montségur's White Lady, Esclairmonde de Foix, she wholeheartedly supported Otto's investigations in Ornolac. She provided him with her car and her personal driver, giving the impression that Rahn had his own servant. She also granted Otto access to her personal library. Cousseau and the Countess jointly influenced Rahn's growing conviction that the chateau of Montségur was indeed the fabled Grail Castle. When Otto arrived at Louise Bernadac's small family pension in Ussat-les-Bains in November 1931, he signed the register as coming from Geneva, but according to Bernadac, Otto had spent the preceding months exploring various towns and villages like Foix, Palmiers, La Vallenay, and Rennes-le-Château. Rahn's studies homed in on the Visigoths, whose capital was Toulouse, as well as the troubadours and the Albigensian heretics. His adventures took him deep into the grottoes and caverns of Ussat-les-Bains, Lordat, Montségur, Niaux, Vigdessos, and Bet-el-Hak. He also explored the grottoes of the Sabarthès area, notably Ornolac and the expansive cavern of Lombrives. In these subterranean worlds, Rahn encountered a huge chamber referred to by locals as the Cathedral, as well as stalagmites named the Tomb of Hercules and the Altar, names used by Eschenbach in his Parsifal epic. He encountered chambers within the Sabarthès covered in Templar symbols, side by side with Cathar emblems, as well as a carving of a bleeding lance. In September 1932, Rahn's treasure hunt intensified dramatically. He met with Paul Ladame in Paris, convinced he had made one of the most important historical discoveries of recent times, and believed he would soon become rich and famous through the forthcoming publication of his book, Kreuzzug gegen den Graal, Crusade Against the Grail. Otto felt certain his first book would be translated into many languages and be the subject of high literary appreciation the world over. He urged Ladame to join him in Sabarthès, on account of French being Ladame's mother tongue, and because he could serve as his porter, painter, and draftsman. Ladame learned of Rahn's quest to uncover the Grail's secret, believed to hold the key to Europe's unity, and agreed to assist. Mysteriously, these were the first and last references ever made by Otto about his self-professed, important historical discoveries, and his quest to discover the secret of the Grail which he believed would unite a fragmented Europe. If there were any truth to Otto's claims, a curtain of silence fell on them immediately. Why would Otto Rahn have made such bold claims if he had no intent of repeating them or producing the goods for the world to see? Was he telling the truth that he located the holiest relic of all of Christendom, but had spoken out of turn and been forbidden to speak further by persons who might profit from such a discovery? Could it have been that Otto knew he was making false statements, but felt inclined to do so to pacify the expectations of others? Or did Rahn genuinely believe he had struck gold and had located the treasures of the Temple of Solomon only to venture into the grottoes with Ladame and come up empty-handed? It is also possible that Rahn had not discovered any actual artifacts, but had compiled enough compelling evidence that he believed a physical discovery was only a matter of time. This scenario is seemingly supported by an SS undertaking in the spring of 1944 to retrieve runic tablets based on information left behind by Rahn. The plot thickens further as the excavation of the Sabarthès caverns continued. President of the Syndicat d'Initiative de Tarascon-sur-Ariège, Joseph Mandemont, allegedly roughed up Otto after he caught him faking Cathar engravings. Rahn's defense was that ancient cave drawings faded over the centuries and need to have their lines sharpened with a few chalk strokes. At the same time as Rahn was on the hunt for the Holy Grail, a Bordeaux engineer named Arnaud was also treasure hunting in the area, equipped with dynamite and divining rods. Arnaud had made an agreement with the village commune that he would split half of any treasures he found with them. He believed the treasure was gold and silver, but told Otto he also expected to find the real gospel of John the Evangelist. The gospel contained the true teachings of Jesus and had been in the custody of the Cathars. When Rahn asked Arnaud how he could be so specific with his information, Arnaud told him he could not elaborate as he was part of a society that required complete silence from its members on such subjects. He also told Otto he knew where the body of Esclarmonde de Foix was buried. Rahn had an extreme distrust of Arnaud and wrote in his second book, Lucifer's Court, that Arnaud would never find that treasure, which was hidden in the forest of Thabor, protected by vipers and its entrance blocked by an enormous stone. How could Otto give such a vivid description of the resting place of the treasure, and how could he have been so confident that Arnaud would come up empty-handed? Had Otto simply been given information that he thought was reliable, or had he, or someone close to him, actually located the treasure? As is often the case when delving into the mysterious life of Otto Rahn, no real answers are to be found, only more questions. The gripping tale of Otto Rahn will conclude in Raider of the Lost Grail Part 2, where Otto Rahn's relentless pursuit of the Holy Grail collides headlong with the sinister machinations of Heinrich Himmler, a descent into darkness from which there is no return. Thank you for watching.